Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here again, one more time for String Tech. I'm here in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We've got a couple of Taylor guitars in, and this is Michael's Taylor guitar, and it's an early one. I have to heat up the fingerboard and slip that fingerboard extension off in order to reset the neck. And these are the tools that I use to get that neck off. First of all, I use the hair dryer to heat up that label to peel it off. Ratchet extensions. I use these rubber hockey puck lined tongs to kind of steady that and hold it. Once I index it onto the bolt, I can reach in through the sound hole and just crack it loose. That's all you need. Crack it loose like that, and then you can just wind it out by hand. These are the two bolts. And in the case of the other Taylor guitar, you'll see they have exactly the same neck bolts and the same label. This is Robert's Taylor 814CE Deluxe, and pretty interesting guitar actually. I've never seen one. And this has the beveled armrest a la Grit Laskin. Everybody's using those now. And a thin rosewood veneer pickguard. Some beautiful abalone. Now this neck is bolted on, so there is a bolt underneath. I haven't determined whether I'm going to need to reset the neck on this one or not. We'll see as we get into it. Just wanted to show you that. Well, I do have to commend you again, Robert, on your packaging job. Absolutely excellent. And I wanted to kind of show the folks what you sent in the package. This is an Apple tracking device. Man, this changes everything as far as shipping guitars across a continent. This one came from Edmonton. No matter what delays there are or where the thing ends up, you'll always know where it is. I get so many guitars shipped up from the States and across Canada that I just had to show you this. What a great idea. Thanks. Well, my wife found this book for me in the Restore for like $3.99. And I guess I don't have to be a walking encyclopedia when it comes to guitars, because we've got 1,000 guitars in this book. Starting from the very first guitars that came out of Spain, Stradivari guitar, and all the way through Nick Lucas. I look at these, I think National Triga. I've had these on my bench. So it's interesting to see a lot of these, an Emperor, Epiphone Zephyr, Emperor Regent. I've had one of those as well. For $4, it's a Guitar Tech's encyclopedia. Yeah, I'm sure I'll spend some time leafing through that. 1,001 guitars to dream of playing before you die. I don't know if I can get through all of them. Whenever I have some spare time to look at guitars, I'll leaf through that book. Thank you, my dear. Well, this is what we ended up with after our first reading on the bridge saddle. So the low E is 4 flat, and there's lots to come forward here. The problem is when we get to the D and the G is 6 cents flat, and it's right at the leading edge. So we are going to have to cantilever. The G, same thing, it's right to the extremity, and that's not far enough. The B is 3 cents flat, and there's enough to go forward. And the high E is actually just a little tiny bit sharp. We are going to have to make a new, slightly cantilevered compensated saddle. So this is our first rundown with the cantilevered compensated saddle, and you always start with a bit too much. You can always take it off, but you can't put it back on. And these are the values we ended up with now, sharp all the way across as opposed to flat all the way across. I've marked all of the strings, and I've marked where I'm going to cut that saddle back. And then we're going to come back and do another measurement. So this is our eureka moment for the bridge. They are in tune all the way across. So the 7th fret and the corresponding 19th fret octave notes on all 6 strings, perfectly in tune. You can see how sharp we were. It was that combination of dropping the string down, which reduces the sharpness, and then canting it back towards the bridge pins. We still have the nut to do yet. We're on to the compensated nut now. This is our first reading. Fretting the 12th fret note and playing the open string. As you can see, we've got 7 cents flat, 3 cents flat, 4 cents flat, the G, perfectly in tune. The other 5 strings all need a bit of attention. We're doing our first run on the radiused, cantilevered, compensated nut blank. Got lots of material on top of that crown to kind of file away. We're working on getting the right string spacing first using the original nut. I've got my 16th thou, which just kind of keeps me on center. I flip it immediately to a 42th thou. This is the 6th string, low string, and then my A string. Just scoring it at this point. Going to work on getting the center to center, string center to string center. Back to the 16. There's our second string and our first string. I'll open that up to 55. Okay, back to the guitar. Well, we have arrived. All 6 strings for the compensated nut and for the compensated cantilevered bridge saddle are perfectly in tune. Still have to wipe off the dust, but that is the compensated nut. These are 12 to 53 at concert pitch. Well, time for the moment of truth here. I am out in the shop, so we've got a bit of ambient noise from traffic passing on the street, but we'll still go through the tuning check. I do have that foam mute in there to isolate the fundamental note. Thanks for enduring that tuning test. Here's a real tuning test. I'll just play some chords. this 814CE Deluxe Taylor that Robert sent out, it is done, but I did want to take a minute and point out a few things about this guitar that are quite a bit different than your run-of-the-mill Taylor. First of all, it's all wood binding, and we've got that William Laskin armrest. There's a couple of spots where the top is marred, but with this ultraviolet cure lacquer, sometimes you just let sleeping dogs lie. If it isn't a structural or acoustical issue, you just chalk it up to wear and tear. Now, another design feature is, I like this idea. They have canted the back braces, all three of them, away from the cutaway. I think it makes sense from a physics standpoint. It's a nice sounding guitar. You'll hear it a lot better when I get into the studio and lay down some tracks and do some single line stuff over top. And that is the final take on the bridge saddle. The slight little bit of fret wear that we've got in the first 3, 4, 5, 6 frets, even up to the 7th, it's not enough to warrant taking out a file or pulling frets and replacing them. So in this case, I just go with that scrub block that I keep mentioning that I sent out in the fretting kits, and we're just going to go 600, 800, and you'll see how quickly we do this. Here's our 600. Okay, I just rotate that paper on the sanding block a little bit, and I have my 800 underneath. Some emery cloth. Second piece of emery. A touch of some lemon oil. Okay, a couple of comments I want to make and be frank about when it comes to choice of material for a saddle or a nut. Now, this is the original saddle, which is a man-made saddle. It's not bone. It's some type of tusk or some type of man-made saddle. This replacement saddle is Corian, and there's a reason for that, because it is also man-made. And I find that these acoustic guitars with pickup systems, bone is much too brittle and too brash sounding for the pickups. Now, if it's a straight acoustic guitar, like that 67 Martin I did actually use bone for that one. And I don't always, but I did in that case. And like I said, it was straight acoustic. There was no system to deal with. Now, whether it be an under-the-saddle transducer or this Taylor system, obviously Taylor preferred to use a synthetic saddle as well. And there's a reason that Martin and the Gibson Custom Shop, Larrivee, Taylor, dozens and dozens of manufacturers go for a man-made material, because there's a guarantee of consistent density from one end of the saddle to the other. So that's why I choose to use a synthetic material. So with that original saddle slot, we had to go beyond the confines of that slot to intonate those two middle strings. The A string was okay and the low E was okay. In order to get all 6 strings perfectly in tune, we needed a cantilever. As I have mentioned many times before, I cover this in detail with spec sheets for my Patreon Tier 3 guys. And in the new membership group that I'm just starting up this month, we'll be having our first Zoom meeting and first podcast, as I wrap my head around that. stay tuned. Got lots more coming up. We're on to the nut now, and as you can see, that is a Tusk injection molded plastic nut. The replacement nut is Corian, which is actually quite a bit harder and wears quite a bit better than the Tusk. And it works beautifully, polishes beautifully. I just wanted to mention that. I'm sure there'll be howls of protest, but I love the way it sands, shapes, polishes, even cutting that shelf. The workability, it polishes up beautiful. It's quite a bit harder than your typical Gibson Les Paul plastic injection molded nut. And for that matter, even the 59 Les Pauls actually had nylon nuts. It's like putting a piece of rubber under the strings. I just wanted to justify that because that's always been my first choice for the reasons I just cited. Time to bring this guitar in and really have a listen. So this is the loop.